Zak Bagans Haunted Museum isn't a shrine to the paranormal. It's a Vegas sideshow built on debunked stories and overpriced hype. In this video, we're cutting through the theatrics to reveal how faked, cursed artifacts, inflated ticket prices, and clever marketing keep the myth alive while draining your wallet. If you want the unvarnished truth about the museum's most famous attractions, keep watching. And hit subscribe so you don't miss our deep dives into the tricks behind the scariest shows on TV. Zak Bagans built his empire on black shirts, hair dye, and a knack for screaming at shadows. After years on television, as the face of ghost adventures, he parlayed that fame into a Las Vegas attraction, marketed as America's most haunted museum. He bought an old mansion, filled it with oddities, and claims it's filled with cursed relics. Bagans isn't just selling memorabilia, he's selling an aura. Every poster frames him as a fearless collector of cursed objects. Fans who once watched him taunt ghosts on television now fly across the country to hear him tell the same stories in person. His persona is equal parts Vegas ringmaster and late-night horror host. He wears tight t-shirts and black hair dye, speaks with solemn intensity about demonic attachments, and warns guests that spirits may follow them home. The museum is essentially the Disneyland of cursed objects, part carnival sideshow, part ghost tour, and wholly dependent on Bagans' charisma. Bagans leans into the role, sunglasses indoors, whispers about demonic attachments, and warnings that guests may leave with more than they bargained for. The marketing promises a genuine temple of paranormal history rather than a haunted house, and Bagans positions himself as its high priest. Behind that bravado is a carefully curated business model. He used his TV credibility to court press coverage and awards, calling his property America's #1 paranormal destination. Tickets aren't cheap. General admission is $54, and VIP RIP passes cost $86. There are gift shops, photo packages, late-night tours, merchandise, and a television spin-off. Bagans thrives on the mystique that each item is real and dangerous. His brand, built over decades, powers the museum's profits. While other haunted houses sell gore and jump scares, Bagans sells authenticity. In his world, a creaky chair is a portal, an antique doll is an entity, and his word is gospel. Fans want to believe, and Bagans gives them exactly what they're paying for. Walking into Zak Bagans Museum feels less like visiting a collection and more like joining a scripted scene. The experience starts in the ticket line, where you sign a waiver acknowledging demons and cursed objects and promise not to sue if something follows you home. Guides warn you that spirits can attach, insist you recite a pledge, and ban phones and cameras. A pre-tour video shows past guests fainting. By the time you step inside, you've been primed to expect danger. Visitors must be at least 14 years old to enter with an adult, and the waiver states the museum isn't liable for injury, fainting, or worse. The 11,000-square-foot mansion is divided into over 30 themed rooms connected by tight hallways and secret passages. Tours move quickly, giving you little time to read placards. Each room is dim. Fog machines and flickering bulbs cast long shadows. Mannequins and props create constant jump scares. Some displays feature antique dolls, Ouija boards, and paintings said to be cursed. Others are simply cluttered with random oddities. Guests must not linger, and there are no rest breaks during the 2-hour walk. The air is hot and stale, and many people report feeling dizzy. Critics suggest this is due to poor ventilation and long periods of standing rather than anything supernatural. Tickets alone cost $54 or $86 for VIPs, and the price doesn't guarantee comfort. Throughout, guides whisper cautionary tales about guests who mocked an item and later regretted it. They tell you to greet certain dolls to avoid nightmares and invoke celebrity stories, such as the rapper who supposedly incurred a curse after touching the Dibbuk box. You're told to cover your eyes before entering some rooms. The lighting, pacing, and narrative work together to induce anxiety. Whether you see a ghost or not, the environment ensures you leave feeling unsettled. By controlling what you see and hear, the museum turns an old mansion into a haunted play that relies on your imagination as much as any paranormal force. At the heart of Zak Bagans' Haunted Museum sits its star attraction, a dusty wine cabinet behind glass. He calls it the Dibbuk box and claims it is the most haunted object in the world. He warns guests not to touch it and hints that rapper Post Malone suffered bad luck after doing so. The origin story Bagans repeats is fantastical. In his telling, a Holocaust survivor trapped a malevolent spirit in the cabinet and passed it to her children with strict instructions never to open it. Decades later, a Portland antiques dealer named Kevin Manis bought the box at a yard sale, ignored the warning, and soon reported nightmares, foul odors, flickering lights, apparitions, and illnesses. Terrified, he listed the cabinet on eBay in 2003 with a long story describing these horrors and claiming it contained a Dibbuk, a malicious spirit in Jewish folklore. Manis said the box came with locks of hair, a mysterious stone, and Hebrew carvings. After the story spread, copycat boxes flooded eBay, and ghost hunters around the world tried to make their own Dibbuk boxes, further cementing the legend. The original listing went viral, and the Dibbuk box entered ghost lore. The box changed hands and gained notoriety. In 2012, a Hollywood studio released The Possession, a film loosely based on the eBay story. By the time Bagans acquired the object from a later owner, it had been featured on multiple paranormal shows. He dedicated a Ghost Adventures episode to investigating it and built a special room in his museum, complete with dramatic lighting and protective glass. He sells the exhibit as a once-in-a-lifetime chance to stand inches from a genuine demon. Podcasts, ghost tours, and YouTube videos have all retold the tale, each adding new layers of fear. In Bagans' hands, a wooden cabinet has become an icon of modern ghost lore, revered by fans and feared by those who believe. Whether or not one buys the story, the Dibbuk box is the museum's crown jewel, a testament to the power of a good story to turn an ordinary object into legend. For all the mystique surrounding the Dibbuk box, the truth is closer to fiction. Kevin Manis later admitted that he made up the entire eBay narrative. He carved the Hebrew letters himself, placed locks of his own hair and a stone inside, and invented the tale of a Holocaust survivor. Scholars point out there is no such thing as a Dibbuk box in Jewish tradition. Dibbukim aren't kept in cabinets. Manis said he was surprised anyone believed him, and later publicly challenged anyone to show a reference to a Dibbuk box before his 2003 listing. None surfaced. What began as a creative prank became a viral myth. Despite the admission, the legend didn't die. The box passed to new owners, and some insisted it still held a spirit. Paranormal shows continued to feature it. Zak Bagans bought the cabinet, declared it haunted, and never acknowledged Manis's confession. His museum still markets it as genuinely cursed. Guides repeat the original story, add celebrity anecdotes, and have guests sign waivers and recite pledges. Bagans charges extra for a private viewing. Critics say this is deceptive. When the creator says it's fake, presenting it as fact exploits belief. The Dibbuk box is now less an artifact and more a prop in a lucrative performance. The debunking of this cabinet highlights a broader issue. Many cursed objects have backstories built on hearsay or hoaxes, yet belief persists because the stories are compelling and because people enjoy being frightened. Bagans' museum thrives on this tension between truth and entertainment. For visitors, the Dibbuk box may be exciting precisely because its authenticity is doubtful. Still, it's worth asking whether the real curse is supernatural or financial. When the myth sells tickets, the line between honest storytelling and hucksterism blurs. As you exit the museum, you may wonder if you've confronted a demon or just paid to see someone's creative writing project elevated into paranormal legend. The challenge remains whether to call it art or deception. Beyond the Dibbuk box, the Haunted Museum thrives on something darker than alleged curses. Murderabilia. Whole rooms are dedicated to showcasing grisly relics linked to notorious killers. One display holds the van used by Zak Bagans, the doctor who advocated euthanasia and assisted in more than 100 deaths. Another features what is allegedly Ed Gein's cauldron, a cast-iron kettle said to have held human entrails during the Wisconsin killer's ghastly crimes. The room is filled with other objects from Gein's life, including a portrait said to be made with human skin, turning real tragedy into spectacle. A serial killer room presents Ted Bundy's murder kit, alongside quotes about why killers kill. Cabinets of charred bones display cremated fragments from Charles Manson. Nearby hang paintings created with the murderer's ashes and even pieces of artwork he urinated on while in prison. Visitors can view Manson's dentures and a pentagram necklace made out of rolled toilet paper by a fellow inmate. Paintings by artist Ryan Almighty decorate the walls, artworks rendered in actual human blood. There are more horrors. A case labeled Dennis Hoff's deathbed contains the bed where the Nevada brothel owner died, a piece of morbid memorabilia that also witnessed Lamar Odom's overdose. Another exhibit shows stairs and dirt hauled from Bagans' so-called demon house in Indiana, where he claims a family was possessed. A recreated basement invites guests to stand on soil, allegedly infused with evil. The Devil's Rocking Chair, tied to the 1980s exorcism of a boy named David Glatzel, sits behind glass. Bagans once removed it from display after visitors supposedly wept uncontrollably in its presence. Peggy the doll occupies her own room, a porcelain figure that guests must greet and bid farewell to lest they invite nightmares. An animatronic clown room and a live circus act where a performer shoves a drill up his nose punctuate the tour with carnival absurdity, blurring the lines between horror house and museum. Perhaps most disturbing is a room focused on the victims of the Kansas City butcher, serial killer Robert Berdella. Bagans does not simply display objects. He hangs actual photographs of Berdella's victims mid-torture. Guests stand inches from images of real people in agony, their pain transformed into voyeuristic entertainment. The museum also houses the transaxle from James Dean's infamous Porsche, Truman Capote's deathbed pajamas, and Robin Williams's movie costume. It even displays a tooth belonging to Patrick Swayze and the wreckage from a car crash that killed a teen influencer. For an additional fee, visitors can buy an RIP pass and descend into the basement or explore secret hallways not shown on the basic tour. Bagans has also purchased infamous properties like the La Bianca House, site of the Charles Manson murders, though zoning prevents him from turning it into a display. Collectively, these objects form a spectacle where human tragedy becomes a commodity. Relics tied to murderers and victims are marketed as haunted or cursed, even when there is no evidence they carry supernatural energy. Bagans' museum capitalizes on voyeuristic curiosity. It invites guests to peer at crime scene artifacts and torture photos, selling shivers as if they were souvenirs. The museum may argue it preserves history, but critics point out that it repackages real suffering for profit, using personal items from killers like Bundy and Gein, or showcasing Manson's ashes in a pentagram necklace, turns the museum into a shrine for serial killer fandom. It decontextualizes horrific acts and exploits the dead by placing their stories alongside ghost lore and carnival scares. Bagans isn't merely displaying antiques, he is monetizing trauma. The museum treats tragedies as entertainment, equating a murderer's cauldron with a supposedly cursed doll. Visitors might leave believing they have witnessed the paranormal, but what they have really experienced is a curated collection of horrors that thrives on shock value and blurred ethics. A visit to Zak Bagans Haunted Museum is engineered to unnerve from the moment you arrive. Before you see a single artifact, staff present you with a waiver that warns of potential death, injury, or demonic attachment. You must initial each clause, acknowledging that unseen forces may harm you and promising not to hold the museum liable. Guides then lead the group in a pledge, absolving management of responsibility should something follow you home. While you wait to enter, a looped video shows previous guests fainting, sobbing, and convulsing. By the time the doors open, many visitors already feel jittery. Not because spirits are stirring, but because they have been psychologically primed to expect the worst. The museum exploits this state of heightened anxiety. Hallways are narrow, dim, and lined with mannequins that jump to life. Rooms contain strobe lights, fog machines, and loud noises. Guides whisper ominous warnings, instructing guests to greet certain dolls to avoid curses and to keep eyes closed until a count of 3 before entering particularly dangerous areas. Tours are lengthy, often lasting 2 hours or more without rest. People stand for long stretches in stuffy, poorly ventilated rooms. There are no seats. By mid-tour, visitors are physically exhausted and dehydrated. Fainting becomes a real possibility, not because of ghosts, but because of heat and fatigue. The museum uses these natural reactions as evidence of paranormal activity. Those who pass out are cited as proof that spirits abound. This manipulation extends to the museum's narrative. The Dibbuk box is displayed as the world's most haunted object, even though its creator admitted the story was fiction. The Devil's Rocking Chair is tied to the exorcism of David Glatzel, but the museum omits the family's later admissions of fabrication. Peggy the doll is said to curse people through photographs, yet there is no documented case of her harming anyone. Guides mention celebrity encounters, Post Malone touching the Dibbuk box and then suffering bad luck, without acknowledging coincidences or conflicting reports. By presenting debunked or unverified tales as fact, the museum blurs the line between storytelling and deception. There are ethical questions too. Displaying real human remains and murder weapons alongside faked haunted objects suggests that all horrors are equal. A room of crime scene relics sits next to a cabinet invented on eBay. A memorial for the victims of the Demon House sits steps away from a circus act. This juxtaposition trivializes real trauma. The Kansas City Butcher Room, with its photographs of torture victims, transforms suffering into spectacle. Visitors sign away their rights and pay for the privilege of staring at pain. Critics argue that the museum crosses from entertainment into exploitation. There is no educational context, no thoughtful treatment of true crime. Instead, the museum invites you to gawk and then encourages you to buy merchandise on the way out. Psychologists note that expectation and suggestion play powerful roles in haunted experiences. When a trusted authority figure warns you about curses, your mind interprets normal bodily sensations, dizziness, nausea, goosebumps, as paranormal. The Haunted Museum leans on that phenomenon. Its intense atmosphere, combined with legal waivers and whispered warnings, ensures that even skeptics may feel unsettled. Yet there is no evidence that any object there is truly haunted. The thrills are manufactured by design. In the end, the museum's scariest specter may be its ethical void. It capitalizes on fear, distorts history, and commodifies tragedy. Visitors leave convinced they flirted with the supernatural. In reality, they have been expertly shepherded through a performance that plays on their expectations, undermines critical thinking, and profits from human suffering. If there's one thing Zak Bagans understands, it's how to turn fear into a commodity. The Haunted Museum isn't just a collection of curiosities, it's a highly engineered business. General admission tickets cost as much as some Vegas shows, and RIP passes add extra rooms and trinkets for an even steeper price. There are t-shirts, hats, branded keychains, and ghost hunting equipment for sale in the gift shop. Bagans runs late-night tours and Halloween events, offers an online store, and cross-promotes the museum on his TV shows and social media. Everything feeds into a feedback loop of fame and revenue. The promise is clear: pay a premium, and you might just witness something supernatural. But beneath the sales pitch lies a troubling pattern. Many of the museum's headline attractions are known hoaxes or misrepresented items. The Dibbuk box, heavily promoted as the world's most haunted object, was admitted by its creator thought to be a work of fiction, yet visitors still pay extra to view it. Displays of the Demon House dirt and the Devil's Rocking Chair ignore contradictory testimonies and retractions. The museum routinely presents legends as facts, relying on Bagans's star power to circumvent skepticism. When a visitor questions the authenticity of an artifact, a guide waves them on to the next room, reminding them of signed waivers and unseen forces. The lack of transparency transforms entertainment into deceit. People pay to see what they believe are real, cursed objects, only to be fed narratives that have been debunked. More disturbing is the museum's treatment of real human suffering. Murderabilia fills room after room. The museum houses a van used by Zak Bagans to perform assisted suicides, the bed on which Dennis Hoff died, and personal effects of serial killers like Ted Bundy and Charles Manson. On the walls hang paintings done with the ashes of murderers, next to pieces they urinated on and dentures they once wore. Visitors are told to gaze at images of Robert Berdella's torture victims, a display that turns real agony into an attraction. A cauldron thought to have contained human entrails sits like a trophy, while above it quotes from killers are displayed as if they were inspirational mottos. By mingling genuine tragedies with ghost stories, the museum blurs the distinction between historical artifact and morbid curiosity. There is no educational framing about the victims, no reflection on the crimes. Instead, the items are used purely for shock value, and their stories are distilled into 2-minute spiels designed to elicit gasps. This approach raises serious ethical questions. Museums typically preserve and interpret history. They provide context, honor victims, and provoke thoughtful reflection. Bagans, however, trades on the sensational. The deeper the pain associated with an item, the more prominent its placement. He frames Murderabilia as haunted, rather than acknowledging the exploitation inherent in displaying it. The assumption seems to be that fear and grief are interchangeable emotions, both valuable only insofar as they can be sold. When he purchased the La Bianca house, the site of one of the Manson family murders, he said he wanted to protect it from being demolished. Yet his track record suggests an eventual plan to incorporate it into his brand, further monetizing a crime scene. Another layer of exploitation involves belief itself. Many visitors are true believers in the paranormal, vulnerable to suggestion. They sign legal waivers, recite pledges, and are told that spirits may follow them home. Guides hint that negative experiences might be divine punishment for doubting the authenticity of an object. For those raised on ghost stories or who have experienced personal tragedies, such messages can be deeply unsettling. A museum leveraging those fears to sell tickets and merchandise treads dangerously close to manipulation. It is one thing to pay for a haunted house, and quite another to be warned you may be cursed if you laugh at a doll. The exploitation also extends to those whose stories are told without their consent. When the museum displays trauma, photos of Berdella's victims, ashes of Manson, or the chair associated with an exorcism, it reopens wounds for families. It reduces individuals' suffering to a curiosity for paying guests. While some argue that preserving these artifacts serves as a reminder of evil's reality, that message is lost amid the ghost stories. Instead, the items are marketed with the same breathless tone as the Dibbuk box. The museum profits from tragedies while claiming to respect the dead. Ultimately, Bagans's Haunted Museum is a study in contrasts. It positions itself as both educational and paranormal, historic and thrilling. It invites visitors to suspend disbelief while simultaneously demanding they believe. It sells known hoaxes as fact and real horrors as entertainment. In doing so, it exploits both the living and the dead. Patrons might be impressed by the collection's size and the theatrical atmosphere, but the underlying business model relies on deception and sensationalism. The museum banks on the idea that audiences won't look too closely, that the thrill of fear will override ethical discomfort. The question for visitors becomes whether they are comfortable funding a spectacle built on the backs of victims and lies. To many, it will be harmless fun. To others, it will feel like crossing a line. Either way, the showman collects reflects his due. Long before Las Vegas filled rooms with cursed dolls and killer relics, humans have been telling stories about objects imbued with malevolent power. Ancient Egyptians warned that disturbing pharaohs' tombs invited deadly curses. English lore speaks of screaming skulls that drive intruders mad. In Japan, dolls that house spirits are burned in ceremonial fires. The modern Annabelle doll, locked in a glass case by paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, draws visitors from across the world. Tales of cursed gemstones, haunted mirrors, and possessed books circulate in every culture. Why do such stories endure, and why do we seek out museums that promise them? Part of the answer lies in our love of stories. We are pattern-seeking creatures, wired to find meaning in the random. When misfortune strikes, after we handle an old trinket, we weave a narrative. Perhaps the object is cursed. These tales offer simple explanations for chaos and provide a sense of control. If a box causes nightmares, then disposing of it will banish the fear. Horror novelist Stephen King once noted that ghost stories are a way of dealing with death. Their repetition is a rehearsal for the inevitable. A cursed object story allows us to flirt with danger in a controlled environment. We are able to explore mortality from a safe distance, and the ritual of recounting these stories bonds us together. Psychology also plays a role. Cognitive biases such as confirmation bias and the placebo effect influence how we perceive everyday events. If someone says a statue is cursed, you may attribute a stubbed toe or a bad day to its influence. Suggestion has power. Studies show that people who believe in voodoo dolls experience real physical symptoms when told a doll has been cursed. Haunted museums exploit this trait by priming visitors with ominous warnings and then letting normal physiological responses like dizziness in a hot, cramped room be interpreted as supernatural. We want to believe that something bigger is at work because it gives our suffering meaning. The allure of cursed artifacts also speaks to a yearning for mystery in an age of science. We live in a world governed by technology, where questions have answers and everything is measurable. Believing that an antique can be possessed or that a box can trap a demon injects wonder back into the mundane. Zak Bagans' museum taps into this hunger. The Dibbuk box is just a wooden cabinet, but its backstory invites us to imagine unseen worlds. Peggy the doll is porcelain and stuffing, but after hearing that people suffer heart attacks after seeing her photograph, our minds fill with dread. Objects become portals to something beyond our senses. Commerce thrives on these beliefs. Sellers on Etsy and eBay peddle haunted jewelry and thrift store paintings said to ruin lives. The more outrageous the backstory, the higher the price. Television shows create drama around items that would be otherwise unsellable. Bagans' museum is the apex of this synergy between myth and money. He doesn't just collect, he curates narratives. He knows that the story sells the object, not the other way around. When he places a cabinet under glass and dims the lights, he is not just exhibiting a piece of furniture, he is performing a ritual for an audience that craves it. At the same time, our fascination with cursed objects reveals a darker side. It reflects how easily we conflate legend with reality, and how readily we suspend critical thinking for a thrill. Visitors may know intellectually that the Dibbuk box has been debunked, yet some still feel anxious standing near it. This willingness to be scared is not a failing. It is human nature. We enjoy roller coasters for the same reason. The body's adrenaline rush is pleasurable, but when the ride's operator claims the coaster is powered by spirits, we edge into manipulation. Our desire for wonder makes us susceptible to exploitation. There is also an element of transgression. Handling a cursed artifact feels like breaking a taboo, and taboos are alluring. Museums like Bagans's offer the thrill of touching forbidden history, the idea that you are doing something dangerous and secretive. For some, it's a way to rebel against rationality. For others, it offers comfort that there are still mysteries science cannot explain. Even those who scoff at the supernatural may get a kick from confronting their own fear response. In the end, our relationship with cursed objects is a reflection of ourselves. We are storytellers and truth seekers, skeptics and believers. We want to be scared, and we want to understand. The Haunted Museum exists because of this tension. It promises the unknown while cashing in on our curiosity. That doesn't make everyone who buys a ticket a fool. It makes them human. The real question is whether we can enjoy the thrill without surrendering our critical faculties. We can walk through the museum, feel the chill of an imagined curse, and still remember that the cabinets are made of wood, the dolls are sewn with thread, and the only magic at work is the power of a good story. Recognizing that doesn't lessen the fun. It enhances it by allowing us to appreciate our own capacity for wonder.